Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Leah Smalley. I'm the Assistant Director of Financial Aid Services at the Coordinating Board. Thank you so much for joining me on our first 2021 webcast. It's been a while. The last one we had was last November, so appreciate your patience as we got rolling for the year. I can't believe it's already been a couple months. I'm sure you know things are flying by. So we do have some important topics to cover with you today. So I will be going through the list of topics and then we'll get started. As a reminder, please make sure to mute your microphones. And if you have questions, go ahead and type those in the chat box and we'll answer those the best we can as we go along. And then if you have questions at the end, I'll be happy to circle back. So let's get started on our webcast today. So the first thing we're going to do is look at our topics of discussion. Today we're going to briefly go over the grant program award amounts that were sent out. Then we're going to touch base on financial aid database or Fad's updates. We are going to go through a notice that went out about loan delinquency reports that have been reestablished. Then we're going to give you a quick update on internet browser compatibility, some updates on that. And then the main focus of our webcast today is going to be on the Netprice calculator. I'm going to be going through a lot of important information and a demo for you. And then lastly, I'm going to give you some reminders and some upcoming training that's going to be happening. So let's get started with some of the general updates. So first and foremost, the award amounts. The Texas Grant and TEOG fiscal year 2022 award amounts were sent out in January. And so we did post those to our website, and hopefully you have those available so that you can start awarding your fall cohort. So Texas Grant, the new total is $5,195 per semester. Again, please be mindful that Texas Grant is awarded based on semester. TEOG, the amounts are there for public, state colleges, institutes, and community colleges. Each one is a separate amount. All of the grant programs for Texas Grant and TEOG, regardless of your institution type, the calculated priority EFC for the award year is calculated at $6,234. So again, the priority EFC does not determine eligibility. It's simply a method for prioritizing your students. So this is the amount that you're going to be using for the year. Now, today we actually sent out the TEG award amounts. And because of the way that the TEG program is written, we are able to release the award amounts for the biennium. So you'll notice on this slide that I have both fiscal years listed. That means that it won't change between this upcoming year and the following year. So for fiscal year 2022 and then fiscal year 2023, the award amount for the year is $3,497. If the student is an undergraduate student and they have exceptional need, then they'll receive $5,246. You'll notice at the bottom here that talks about how to determine if they can receive that exceptional need. But again, keep in mind this is one, it's for the entire academic year versus the other programs were by semester. And two, this is for both years that are coming up. So while I'm sure we will re-announce the award amount, if you're wondering for next January or so, you don't have to wonder what the amount is going to be. It's already going to be published. All right, so moving on. The Fad updates. So Fad was opened March 3rd. We are anxiously awaiting your files. We know that the cycle one is always the kickoff for the year where you start submitting your data so that you can get things starting to go through as far as cleaning up your information. But as a reminder, you do not have to reconcile for cycle one. It's not a requirement. You do have to clear all your student level errors, and it's a good time again to start preparing as you go through the following cycles. But I did want to bring to people's attention that the manual was updated. The updates are minor, but they are important to know. So I listed them here. So you'll notice that for the Texas College Work Study and Mentorship, we moved around some of the edits that are on our end for our programming. So we did list those within the manual. So if there's a student that has a ministry-related degree or an athletic scholarship, those edits were added to TEG, Texas Grant, Texas College Work Study and Work Study Mentorship. So that edit was added. But on the flip side, we removed an edit for the ministry-related degree and athletic scholarship so that they align. So now all of them are better aligned with the eligibility rules. The last note you'll see at the bottom there is very important. GEAR has been a big program this past year to help students with issues related to COVID-19. So those funds are reported on FADs. Those are used in the data elements associated with those grant programs. So if the student received GEAR funds for Texas Grant, TEOG, or TEG, then those funds are reported here. And if you have questions on that, again, if it's specific to your school, you can send those through and we can work with you one-on-one so that you know how to report that accurately. The updated manual is on our website. It was also sent out within the manual, but you'll definitely want to always make sure that you have the latest copy. So that way, if there was any changes, you're always submitting files based on the newest rules and the newest guidance. All right, moving on. So the loan delinquency reports. A while back, we discontinued using the loan delinquency reports because the coordinating board removed from the program rule that schools have to put students on an academic hold. That was back in November of 2019. When that rule went away, these reports were discontinued, but we received feedback from the institutions that they wanted those reports so that they could help counsel students and make sure that they could get them back on track so that there were less defaults and that kind of thing. So what we did is we went through a series of tests. We actually recreated those files, and now it's an automated file that gets loaded into your Move It loan output file each month at the start of the month. That started in January of this year, and when you log into your loan output, you will notice that there's actually, I believe, 12 months worth of reports in there because we dumped all the historical reports for the past year. You'll always want to use the most recent report because, again, we put those in there for historical purposes, but they change every single month. The report includes a list of students who are currently more than 90 days delinquent on any student loan for your school. So if it was at another school, you may still run into a issue with a student who wants to apply and they can't get approved. But unfortunately, that's the limitation of this, is it's only going to be for your school. But it's still, again, a nice counseling tool so that you can get that student back on track and make sure that they know that they have that responsibility to repay it or to put them in deferment. Another thing that in February that was released was a change report. So like I mentioned, we gave you the last 12 months, but from month to month, it's kind of hard to know without sitting there and comparing the documents to see, okay, which students came on, which fell off. So we created a change report so that you can easily identify who was added or removed. So that's a helpful tool. So both of those, again, are being loaded each month. You'll want to go out if you participate in the loan programs to check that out. But as a reminder to all institutions, you should not be placing a student on an academic hold based on these reports or anything else. The coordinating board no longer issues that guidance or has that requirement. If the institution has their own policy or own reasoning for put the student on hold, that's fine. But we want to reduce the obstacles for a student to get funding. And so the only thing that's going to stop them is if they are delinquent, they don't have a deferment or forbearance on file, we want to get them back on track. So hopefully this will help you with that effort. All right, I think I have that one last note at the bottom here to just remind everybody that not to place on academic holds. If you need to see that reminder, we have the memo from November of 2019 posted on our website, so you can reference that to see when the rule changed and the guidance we issued. All right, so moving on. Discontinuation of Internet Explorer. This was something that came up the past couple weeks at the coordinating board. Our agency is like many companies and organizations, is moving away from using Internet Explorer because they are slowly bringing that down. They've replaced that with Microsoft Edge. There's obviously other browsers out there that you can use. So I wanted to bring this up because The coordinating board is specifically our area, posts a lot of resources, documents, forms, and things that we want you to have access to. And lo and behold, last week I went on my browser and I said, oh my goodness, everything's gone. Where did it go? So I notified my team and I said, hey, all of our stuff's gone. And they're like, no, it's not. What are you talking about? I said, I don't know, maybe it's my browser. Sure enough, I pulled up Chrome and there everything is. So I said, oh no, we need to make sure that the institutions or any of our customers know that those resources are there, but if you're using Internet Explorer, you may be missing those resources. So I wanted to bring that up so that you can start transitioning to using these other browsers for coordinating board purposes. You'll want to follow guidance from your institution on what you need to use, but just don't want people thinking that all of these resources disappear. They are simply just not available or compatible on Internet Explorer anymore on the version that we have. So it's likely that that will happen at some point if you're still using it. I didn't list Firefox, but pretty much any browser other than Internet Explorer should be compatible at this point. But again, test it out to see which one is the most comprehensive for what you need. And then I would try your best to start using those browsers and, like me, getting familiar with new favorites and ways to navigate. All right, so that is the discontinuation. Let's move on to the big topic of today's webcast, which is Netprice calculator update. So give me just a moment. I wanted to make you aware that today we sent out a memo this morning and it notified institutions that Netprice calculator update for this year is going to be different. Our former Netprice calculator application that was hosted on College for All Texans unexpectedly reached a point in November of this past year where it was no longer functional and we had to disable the application. And because of that, institutions were contacting us and we were working with them to try and identify ways to bring us back into compliance based on not only federal law, but our statutory law under the state of Texas, which is Texas Education Code 61.0777. Both of those laws require that an institution has a Netprice calculator, and it also requires the state of Texas to have a Netprice calculator for institutions. So it's kind of a complex type of thing. So what we did is we met with the Financial Aid Advisory Data Subcommittee, and we went through the different options that we could think of, different solutions. So, we first identified that we have this issue and know how do we go about coming up with a workaround or some type of accessible tool. So what we decided and what we did based on our research is that we identified that the federal Netprice calculator online on their website is completely compliant. It's easy to use. It's something that all the institutions may or may not be familiar with, but that we can collectively all do. So that has been the solution that we came up with as a broad group and a committee. And so that's what I'm going to go through with you today is how can we get all the required institutions to submit this federal Netprice calculator. As you'll see in my note here, it says public institutions are required to do this. Private institutions are encouraged to do this, but you are not required. And that also goes for health-related institutions. You have the option to do it if you do not enroll first-time full-time students into your organization. So in today's memo, we sent out a lot of information and hyperlinks. So what I wanted to do today on the webcast is go through step by step, how are you going to get that information to the coordinating board? And I think after this demo, you'll see just how easy it is, but I wanted to prepare you for what you're going to expect when you get on the website and exactly how you go about doing that, okay? So let's get started. So the deadline to submit that to the coordinating board is April 16th. A copy of the instructions will be posted on our webpage, but here's what it looks like right now. Because we just released it this morning, you won't see the Netprice calculator online probably for another day or two, and then these instructions and the memo will be posted. But again, they did go out through our listserv. All the directors should have received a copy of the memo with all of the instructions. So It's out there in the world, but again, it takes a little bit of time to get it up on our website. All right, so let's talk about the 3 main steps of this new process, because again, it's different than our old one, but you're going to see a lot of similarities. So let's talk about the 3 update steps that we came up with. So first and foremost, you're going to want to collect some information. And again, I'm going to show you exactly how to get that. But when you get on the Netprice calculator, they, like many organizations, everything is a little bit behind. So right now, the only available Netprice calculator for the Department of Education is the 2018-19. They have not released their newer calculator template yet, so we're requesting that all institutions use 18-19. Even if when you get there, 2 days from now or 2 weeks from now, if you see that the newer one is available, please use the 2018-19 because we're trying to collect everything consistently from all schools for the year. And again, this is for the state's Netprice calculator. So first and foremost, you will need your college student budgets for 2018-19. So one of the things that we did, and I'll show you in just a minute, is we sent out that information to the schools. So when we get to that step, you'll see a copy of that. The second thing you're going to want to do is assemble your grants and scholarship information. Again, I'll show you what that looks like, and then your percentage. The step 2 is actually doing the online calculator. I'm going to do a demo for you today. And lastly, it's submitting your file. How do you get that file to the coordinating board so that you can meet the requirement? Okay, so let's get started. Again, all of this is in the instructions, so I encourage everyone to go read those top to bottom because we tried to make them as thorough as possible. So first and foremost, collecting your data. Again, 18-19 data. Critical that you use this so that we can all be consistent on exactly how these Netprice calculators are set up. The general public is using this as a tool to shop around, and so that's one of the reasons we want to make sure that they're similar and that everyone's doing them the same, so it gives the general public the best representation of our schools in Texas. So first and foremost, college student budgets. A spreadsheet was sent out in the memo. Again, we will provide this online. We'll post it on our website, but you'll notice a bunch of different colors, and that's because the college student budgets was broken down on the federal website with basic tuition and fees, books and supplies, room and board, and other costs, which, as you know, is your cost of attendance. So in order to update the calculator, you're going to need that information available. The second thing that you're also going to need is your grant and scholarship aid. And again, there's a lot of fine details in exactly how to collect this information. But again, you can go play with the calculator and get an idea for it, but it's always good to prepare in advance. So the way that they have it set up is very similar to our old tool. Everything is broken down by EFC range and then also by housing status. So you can see here that there's a table you're going to have to fill in. It breaks it down by EFC categories and then by housing status. So you'll want to work to make sure that you can collect that information based on the federal requirements on how to collect that. And again, we'll go through that once we get on to the website. Lastly, you're going to want to collect the percentage of grant recipients at your institution for 18-19. So within the calculator, you do have to specify the percentage. Again, you'll see 50 here. That's just a number I put in there for demo purposes. But you'll need to work with your systems to make those determinations based on the data that you have. It's going to be different for every institution because of your cohort. Very important to point out the difference between our old calculator and the federal calculator is there was a lot of flexibility with the state's prior Netprice calculator. We didn't give a lot of steps or guidance on what you needed to include. And the more research and the more updates we did to these instructions, we identified that there is a very, very straightforward formula to pulling the information to the calculator. The federal calculator does not allow you to include loans, exemption, waivers, scholarships, private resources. Our old one, we kind of said, put what you feel is best to adequately describe your institution. We need all schools to simply report grants and scholarships without adding any of the extra. And you'll notice that in these explanation fields on the screen, you will have an opportunity to put some of that information that you feel is critical for the student to know. But again, when you're adding it into the table that we showed you, you want to make sure that it's consistent with the guidance that the Department of Ed has provided. Okie dokie. So now we get to the actual completing of the online net price calculator. So I'm going to exit out of the PowerPoint. You're still going to see my screen, and we're going to go over to the actual website so I can show you and walk you through the steps. You can just see how wonderfully easy this is. I was so excited when I saw this because I was like, this is going to be cake for the schools. Okay, so let me minimize this. I told you my browser a minute ago was acting up. So, all right, so what you see on your screen is the IPEDS website that also produces the net price calculator for the Department of Education. They have a main landing page that has a ton of helpful information. They have not only the template that we're going to fill out here, which is the second one, but it has the requirements. It has a whole listing of question and answers that have come through over the years that are very detailed and very helpful. But it also has a quick start guide, which is listed in our materials as well. But I encourage you, again, go get comfortable, go get familiar with all this stuff before you get started. But for today's demo purposes, I'm going to do the template for you. All right, so when you click on the template, it's going to shoot you down to the middle of the page, and then you're going to go ahead and click on the template. Okay, and then this first page is a disclaimer. Okay, and I'm going to pause before I get too far into this. Are we still having issues? I need just a couple people in the chat box just to confirm you can hear me. Yes, okay, good. Just making sure. I see that we were having technical difficulties earlier, and I apologize. Okay, all right, moving forward. So we are on the net price calculator screen. This is the, before you proceed, kind of this disclaimer that this is a federal portal. When you click on continue, the first step is you're going to identify, like I mentioned, which academic year you're going to be filling out. There's a disclaimer at the top here that says use the most recent year available. Again, if 1920 is already out, we're still requesting that you use 1819 for this year's submission for the state. So the data should be provided for full-time, first-time, degree-seeking undergraduate students. Okay, so I'm going to click on 1819, and then it's asking what is your predominant calendar system. I'd say the majority of the schools are academic, so we're going to do that one for demo purposes. When you go to the next set of screens, it's going to ask about housing. I'm pretending I'm a university, so it's asking, do you offer controlled housing either on or off campus? I'm going to say yes, but then it asks me, are your students required to live on campus? And I'm going to say no. We have a shortage on dorms, so I'm going to say no. And then it's going to ask, do you have a different tuition structure for the various types of students? So I'm going to say yes, but I'm a university, so we only have in-state and out-of-state. If you're a community college, you may have the in-district, out-of-district. So you'll want to select the ones that apply to your school. Now, if you make a mistake, luckily you can see you have these buttons at the bottom where you can go back and forth and fix things. But again, feel free to go play around and get familiar with the template so that you know how to fill it out. So going to the next screen, this is where you've got your cost of attendance for full-time, first-time undergraduate students. You'll notice at the top here, it talks about you need to enter what was sent to IPEDS. Again, we are providing your 18-19 budgets directly from the state. It's based on what you submitted to the coordinating board, and we're requesting that you use this instead of your IPEDS information so that all the schools are consistent based on reported data, okay? So now, ideally it should match, but there would be times where maybe there was a variance if you had some kind of adjustment, but we sent out the budget so that it was easier to extract and you didn't have to go back in time and try and get all that information. So I'm going to pull up the spreadsheet. So this is an example of the spreadsheet that was sent out this morning. And you can see up here at the top, I have my ABC University. So this is the one I'm going to use to fill out my calculator. I've got my in-state, out-of-state is 10,000 and 20,000. So I'm going to put 10,000 here and 20,000 here. And I just happen to know that my books are 1,500. My room and board, let me go back because I don't remember what we had on there. All right, let's see. Room and board, we have 10,000 on campus, 8,000 off. Oh, why this is, there we go. 10,000 on, oh wait. Okay, 8,000. And then I had 3 across the board for these because they're all the same at my school. Okay, so we've got that all filled in. We'll go to the next screen. This is where that EFC based on housing status comes up. You'll notice at the top it has some information on exactly how to fill this out. You should be representing the median amount of need and non-need grants and scholarships. This is federal, state, institutional, local government, but you don't include private. This is for full-time, first-time entering students. You'll see that over and over again. One of the nice things about this is if you have 3 or than few students or occurrences, then you'll leave it blank, and then based on the cells around it, it does a calculation to give you an average. So I'm going to show you kind of what that looks like. So I'm going to put 1,000 here, 1,000 here, but 5,500. Kind of messing around here. And then I'm going to leave this blank, and then I'm going to hit continue. Hang on. Let's see if it'll let me continue. Okay, when you hit back, go to back, it did an average. You see that? I didn't have to do anything. So you'll want to enter all the ones that are applicable to this chart, but then it does the rest for you. So that's a really cool feature of this tool as well. So I'm going to leave this as is so we can keep moving, but you want to fill that in based on your student population. Earlier on the other slide, I mentioned that you were going to have to calculate the percentage of full-time students that were awarded grants and scholarships, again, for the associated award year. So again, this is 18-19. You would need to know how many of your students received that. Again, excludes private grants and scholarships. So for demo purposes, again, 50% is my school. And then this extra section here, you have 3 available explanation boxes. These are optional, and they're all placed on a different part of the screen. So you'll notice here that this first explanation box is right at the end of the calculator, and they give you an example of what you can put in there. It's used to describe people that were excluded from your totals if you want to provide that extra layer of clarity. The second one, it comes right after the FAFSA link. It's optional, but you can say, here's how you get to our website. Here's our portal. Here's some additional things you may want to consider about our institution. And then this third one is, again, a separate one that you can use for things like caveats, disclaimers, just additional information that you think that would be helpful. But again, this is where you can put things like the average student borrows X amount of loans, or we give an institutional scholarship of X for this cohort of people with this kind of circumstance. So again, you have lots of room on this one. Our previous one only had one small optional text. So again, you have a lot of space to really communicate to the students your resources and anything you want them to know about your awarding structure, your housing structure, anything about your school. All right, moving on. The next screen here is the confirmation screen. I'm going to make it a little smaller so you can see it. So this is where you can go through, make sure all your answers are correct, go through to see if your chart has been filled out correctly. You've got all your explanations, no typos, everything looks good. You can either go back and hit modify, you can go back all the way to the very beginning, or you can hit continue. Once you get to this page, this is where the end of the calculator is. So again, you need to make sure before you download the file that you have everything right and that you're good with it, because once you do that, you can't go back and close the browser and restart it. So we're asking all schools to select this light background, black text. It's easier to read, and again, for consistency purposes on the on the coordinating board's website, we're trying to keep them all the same. Then institution name, if you can go onto the spreadsheet that was provided for the budgets, under your institution name, this is what we're requesting people use, because this should be your formal long name, no abbreviations or acronyms on here, but that'll be aligned with what we use for the public facing site so that they know which school they're selecting. Okay, so you'll enter that here. Again, mine's going to be ABC University. You'll notice that it automatically updated my welcome message, but you can modify this. If you have something that you want to say that's specific to your school, you have some kind of slogan, you want them to feel like it's related to your school, you don't have to, but it's an option. Okay. Again, if you make a mistake, you can go back. And the nice part is it will save everything all the way up to the very first screen. So you don't have to worry, you know, some of those softwares, it's like you hit back and it clears it all, but this one's really nice. It maintains that. So once you're done, you're going to hit download. Okay. And you'll notice on here, I was playing around earlier, there's another file. And it creates a zip file. And within the zip file is an HTML. So when you have it, 9 times out of 10, you're going to find this in your downloads. So I'm going to say show in a folder. You can see here in my downloads folder, that's where it's saved. So what we need to do in order to get this to the coordinating board, I'm going to pull up my PowerPoint real quick just to see if I had another step I wanted to show you. Okay. So what we need to do to send it to the coordinating board is we need to get that file to us. So from your downloads, you can extract the file by right-clicking, and you can hit extract all. You can double-click on the file, and you'll notice that inside it says index. It's an HTML document. This is what we need at the coordinating board. We don't want you to open or manipulate or change anything at this point. You do have the ability to rename the file. So you can do a right click, and you can copy it, move it to another location. You can click down here, you can hit extract. And the nice part about the extract feature is that, you know, it pops up your folder structure so you can save it somewhere else. So there's different options on actually moving the index file out. I leave that up to you because each person has different comfort level on how they want to do that. I personally just do copy and paste and I save the file. So here I'm going to hit browse for y'all. I'm going to go to my training. Here's my MPC, and I'm going to select that, extract. And I'm going to say replace because I was doing this earlier, so it's the same file. Okay, so you can see my index file in there. And then I renamed a copy earlier, MPC training index. So again, you just, like anything else, you change it. So testing index. Help if I can spell index. Okay. And that's that step. So now you actually have a copy of your institution's net price calculator. If you were to open this, it would launch in a browser, and that's the net price calculator. But the last step is, how do you get that to the coordinating board? We have to be able to collect that from all the required institutions. So now I'm going to show you exactly how to send that to us, which is the third step in the process. All right, so submitting the file. So what you're going to do once you have downloaded it, you've renamed it, you extracted it from that zip, you're ready to go, is you're going to log into Move It. You hit your sign on. And once you're on the main screen, you'll click on your folders. From here on the drop down, you're going to click on the net price calculator from the drop down list. This folder was added to everyone's listing. So if it doesn't look familiar, that's because we just added it. So you should see it in there. And if you don't have it for some reason, you'll want to reach out to us and we'll get it corrected. From here, once you open the folder, you'll have this screen that says upload file. You'll click on the upload file button, and then a box pops up that says, you know, where do you want to get your file from? So you'll hit the browse. You'll go find the file that we just created, which was that index file. You'll hit open, and you'll hit upload. That is it. that is it. That is really all there is to it. So again, I feel like this is much more straightforward than the prior net price calculator. We are happy to do one-on-one training if you need it, but if you're curious kind of what it's going to look like once you upload it, we have built a new net price calculator web page. And so all the templates that are submitted by the institutions, we're hosting as a comprehensive listing. And so this is what it'll look like. You'll have the user will have a drop-down list. You'll click on the institution. So we have all the institutions that should be submitting a net price calculator loaded in there. They'll hit the submit button, and then it launches that file that we just downloaded. So for each school, you can see my Leah's University, then they start the process and they'll go through all the steps and they'll get their net costs and the cost of attendance and everything else. So if you have not submitted your data to the coordinating board and someone goes to our web page and they click submit, they will get this message that says that we don't have the information from this school. Please contact financial aid. So while there's an interim kind of process going on where we're collecting files, this will be displayed in the meantime. So keep that in mind that you may get phone calls saying, hey, I tried to do this net price and it's not working. What's going on? They'll be directed to your institution so you can answer questions about housing, cost of attendance, all that fun stuff. The user will still be able to go to College for All Texans. We'll be linking this page to College for All Texans, and there's going to be some wording letting them know that they'll be redirected so that they aren't surprised when it looks different, because again, it is a new look and feel because it's on our agency site. But that's how it's going to work. So again, as a recap, you're going to collect the information for 1819. You're going to go on to the Department of Education's website, fill out the template based on your institution's data and your cohort. You're going to download the file, you're going to extract it, rename it, and you'll upload it into Move It. That's all that's required. Once it's been uploaded, I would recommend once this link is live that you go test it to make sure it works, because the last thing we want to do is you have an upload and you're done, but it's still not working. So again, this is brand new. We want to make sure that everyone has their net price calculator available so that one, you're in compliance, and two, that your students can access it. All right, so that's net price. Hopefully if you have questions, you're routing those through and Deshay can be answering them. I will circle back after I get done with these last few slides and we can talk about anything else you have. Okay, so that was net price. Let's move on to reminders and training. So a few weeks ago, we sent out a notice letting schools know that Texas College Work Study can be used for summer awarding. The funds typically have to be returned back to the coordinating board if they're not used by February 20th. But this year we want to encourage institutions to use those funds for students they have on campus. And if you cannot use those funds, or you won't be able to, you'll want to initiate the authority to transfer process by transferring work study into your grant program. The rule does authorize schools to move money between the programs. There are limits on how much you can transfer. They did do an exception last year. We did get questions on whether that would be the same. The answer right now is no, there's no change on the amount. But if there is, we will notify institutions if there's somehow the ability to do more. But right now it's just based on the amount set in the rule, which is 10% or $10,000, whichever one is less. So if you have work study funds and you want to move those funds over, then you'll need to send the request through Contact Us by July 1st. And any work study that you hold on to for the summer to pay out the students that are employed does have to be expended by the end of the fiscal year, which is August 31st. One thing to clarify too is work study student mentorship does have a different amount. Theirs is not 10%, I believe it's 25%, and Deshay might be able to type that in the box down there, but there are different thresholds. So you'll want to make sure you confirm how much money you can move over. and we will work with you on that process if you've never done it before. The next thing, state financial aid opt-in, opt-out survey. This is something we collect each year. Institutions participating in certain state programs are required to opt into them, participate in the allocation process. So those included Texas College Work Study, mentorship, educational aid. That is it, I believe. We will be sending out tuition equalization grant. That one has not been sent out yet. The deadline for these programs is March 12th, which is this week. So if you haven't completed the survey, it's posted on our website. You need to go and make sure that that gets submitted. If you have a question or if you want to make sure that we receive that, feel free to reach out to us. But we can't do the allocation process until we know who is opting in and opting out. So this is definitely an important activity to complete. All right, last on the list, Good Neighbor Program. If you're joining from maybe the international office or if your financial aid office is the one completing this, the deadline is Monday, March 15th to submit all nominations. We did open up the portal. The instructions were updated with some clarifying information on the process, but pretty much it's the same exact process as all prior years. The student does have to meet certain eligibility requirements. And then once the institution decides how they're ranked and prioritized, those are entered onto the coordinating board's website so that we can collect all the nominations. And then we will be running the process to determine the recipients for this year's Good Neighbor Program, which is starting in fall of 2021 and goes for 12 months. So it's an exemption of tuition. It goes from fall until the following fall. So if you have an international office, you may want to check in with them. Again, things seem to be moving very quickly this year, more so than ever before. So we would hate for a school to miss out on the deadline of submitting those applications. And it is a administrative code rule, so we don't have the ability to move that unless we get approval. So it's very critical that schools submit those on time for the students to be considered. All right, moving on to training. TASFA regional training starts tomorrow. We are participating in all three of those. So the first one is March 10th, which is tomorrow. I'll be doing the same presentation as I'm doing today. So if you're attending that, you'll get to see me again and hear me again. And if you have other either colleagues or staff that you want to hear this presentation, I'll be doing it tomorrow. And then we'll be having trainers attend on the 17th and also the March 24th. All three are the same presentation, but there's multiple sessions so that people can attend one of those. So you'll be able to hear all this information on there if you have people that couldn't come today. The next webcast is going to be April 13th. We will be sending out the topics like we do each month, but I wanted to let you know that financial aid services trainers are going to start presenting at the webcast in the future months. So you'll hear some new voices and get some more information from our team that works so hard on all of these resource materials. They work on the guidelines, they work on the websites, and so we wanted to make sure that they get the opportunity to share information because they really are the subject matter experts for a lot of the stuff that comes out from the coordinating board from our area. So you'll be hearing their voices soon, so stay tuned on that. Lastly, let's talk about a couple changes or things that I wanted to remind everybody of, especially if you're new, you may not be aware of some of the ways to contact us. So Student Financial Aid Programs has multiple phone lines that are available to different categories of customers. So the first two are, they came back up a couple months ago. The first one is Texas Financial Aid Information Center. It's a public line dedicated to the state of Texas so that primarily students and their parents can call in to get help on how to navigate through just higher education and applying to go to school, including financial aid. So that line is available. And then our borrower services line is dedicated to student borrowers who either take out a college access loan, the Texas Armed Services Scholarship Program, or any prior loan programs that the coordinating board has serviced. So that line is also available. Financial aid services, though, actually has its own dedicated phone line for institutions only. So please make sure that you don't post this on your web page or in any of your announcements. We really want to have this line available only to institutions so we can help you with any questions or processing errors that you have. We are open for financial aid services from 8 to 5. Oops, it disappeared. Oops, I'm going the wrong way. Our phone lines are open 8 to 5 each day, and it's closed from 12 to 1 daily. So you'll want to keep that in mind. So if you can't reach us via phone, then you do have the option to submit an online inquiry. So I wanted to share that with you because this is a really nice thing to do if one, the agency is closed, two, maybe you're working on a weekend, three, you have something that's complex. It's difficult for us to always answer that over the phone because sometimes it requires research. So I do stress that these are a good way to send through your questions is through Contact Us, because then we can route it to a subject matter expert that can help you faster. So let's talk about how you submit it correctly so that we can get the answers that you need, because there are some steps. So submitting a Contact Us, a form, when you click on any of our links on any web page will pop this form up. And what's really important is that you mark that you're an institution, because this is a software program and it routes to different areas within our agency. So we want to make sure that all of these selections are done appropriately. So you'll want to put in your institution because our team is broken up based on institution type. So we have certain people that work with private schools, community colleges, universities, all of that. So having your name in there is very helpful. It just expedites the process. One of the most critical pieces, and if you're listening, remember this, when you're submitting a Contact Us, I can't stress enough that you put financial aid question. That's if it's related to a loan, if it's access, if it's anything to do with an update, eligibility, anything financial aid related from an institution should be financial aid question every single time. And the reason is, again, our software program is going to route that to our area. Otherwise, it could take a few days to get to us. And that's why sometimes you may experience a delay because it has to get routed through the appropriate channels. So the fastest way to get it to us, financial aid question. You'll enter your description into the box. The more information, the better, but be mindful of FERPA and personal identifying information such as socials. So you can put information in there. We have a secured site, but again, if you can communicate details without everything, then that's also the safest thing to do. You'll also have to enter your information, but one of the key things to bring up is your phone number. Even though you may send a detailed request, sometimes we have follow-up questions or we want to give you an update, and having your direct phone line is very, very useful. Okay, so if you can enter that, it's not a required field, but we would very much appreciate it so we can get in touch with you. Once you do that, you hit the submit button. Like I said, if you fill it out the way that I recommended, it does go to us pretty instantaneously. Otherwise, it kind of moseys on around the agency until it reaches our area. Again, you can use our phone line at any point if you have something that's urgent or you want to talk to somebody about the best way to go about something or get an answer. But we do often have you go through Contact Us so that we can document things and that we can collect all the details for your scenario. So I did a lot of talking and I gave you a ton of information. That's the end of this presentation for the webcast. This last slide is something that I post every webcast that, believe it or not, is so very useful. I have someone on my team pull the surveys every month just to see what the feedback is on the topics, on presentation skills, and to recommend different things for the future. So if you have time, it's just a few minutes. It just gives us some clarity on how we need to proceed with these webcasts. This is going into the third year of these. I'm so thrilled that it's still popular and that y'all are getting information. Again, please submit those through. If you have questions, that Contact Us is one of the best ways to get in touch with financial aid services or student financial aid programs. And that's all I have. So I am going to circle back to the chat to see what else, if anything, we have. Give me just a moment here. All right, so let's see. All questions have been answered. Deshay is amazing. She did all of the questions. All right, everybody. Well, I appreciate y'all joining. Like I mentioned, we have another one coming up next month. This video, the recording will be posted on the webcast page under our archive section. So if you have people that weren't able to join and you want them to listen, then we can have you go listen to that, or you can join the regional training. Looks like Ron Williams. We will get back with you, Ron. And thank you again, everyone. I hope y'all have a great week, and I'll see you in April. Have a great day.